Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. We just passed 180 subs. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I hope I continue to make great content you guys will enjoy in the future. Now, on Thursday night in the American Conference, there's a game between the SMU Mustangs traveling on the road at the Tulane Green Wave. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Now, SMU is 6-4 and 4-2 in the American to start this season, and Rhett Lashlee has done a pretty good job in his first season at head coach at SMU. They did start the season kind of rough, but they have really turned it around. In week 1, they beat North Texas on the road 48-10. That was a solid start to the season. And then they beat Lamar 45-16. Then they lost a tough game at Maryland 34-27. Not a bad loss. Talia Tagovailoa was healthy for Maryland at the beginning of the season, and they were really competitive. Then they lost to TCU at home 42-34, and obviously TCU's having a great season, so that was not a bad loss there. But then they lost at UCF 41-19. Tough loss. They weren't really competitive in this game, but UCF's having a great season. But then they beat Navy 40-34. That was a good win there. But then they lost to Cincinnati 29-27. Another tough loss. Cincinnati's having a great season as well in the American. But then they've bounced back and won 3 in a row. They beat Tulsa 45-34. That was a good win. And then they had a massive offensive explosion game against Houston in a 77-63 win. No defense in this game, and SMU was able to find a way to win that one. Then they won at South Florida 41-23. That was a good win there. And in that South Florida game, quarterback Tanner Mordecai, 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a quarterback transfer from Oklahoma, and Tanner Mordecai has been really solid for SMU. He doesn't make too many mistakes. He has solid performances for most of the season, so he is a really good quarterback. Running back Tyler Levine had 112 yards and a touchdown, and running back Kamara Wheaton at 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. South Florida's defense is not very good, but still, for SMU to have 2 running backs over 100 yards and combined for 3 touchdowns, both are very solid running backs, and that's a good sign for SMU's offense. And wide receiver Jordan Curley at 156 yards and a touchdown, and wide receiver Rasheed Rice at 99 yards and a touchdown, both very talented receivers, and SMU has a really great offense. On the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Jimmy Phillips Jr. at 6 tackles, and safety Brandon Crossley at 4 tackles for SMU against South Florida. And SMU's defense needs to improve a little bit. They have given up a lot of points in some games, but they have shown the ability to get stops at times. So if their defense can improve some, I think SMU will be a really good team. And on the Tulane side, they're 8-2 and 5-1 in the American to start this season. And Willie Fritz has done a good job at Tulane throughout his career at Tulane as the head coach, and he has done a solid job this season. They've really bounced back after a terrible 2-10 season last year, and they're having a great season, but they finally did lose their first game in the American this season, but they beat UMass in week 1 42-10. That was a good win. Then they beat Alcorn State 52-0, but they won at Kansas State 17-10, and that win has really held up. Kansas State's having a really good season in the Big 12, so that was a good win for Tulane. Then they lost to Southern Miss 27-24, maybe a game that you're coming off a big win, or it's a letdown game. It's still tough loss to Southern Miss, but they're a decent team in the Sun Belt. And then they won at Houston in overtime 27-24. That was a good win because Houston's a decent team. Then they won it against East Carolina 24-9. Good win. East Carolina's having a good season as well. Then they won at South Florida 45-31. Then they beat Memphis 38-28, and they won at Tulsa 27-13. All solid wins there. But then they lost to UCF 38-31 at home for their first loss in the American Conference this season. And UCF is a really good team in the American Conference. Gus Malzahn's done a great job, so that's not a bad loss there. And quarterback Michael Pratt had 236 yards and 3 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in the UCF game. He is a very talented running back. He's a dual threat. He has not run the ball as much this season, but he can do it, and his arm is fantastic, and he can make a lot of throws. Running back Tajay Spears at 130 yards, very talented running back for Tulane. Wide receiver Jaquan Jackson, 95 yards and a touchdown, and wide receiver Deuce Watson, 56 yards and a touchdown, and wide receiver Shea Wyatt at 33 yards and a touchdown. Very solid receiving core for Tulane, and they have a great offense. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Dorian Williams at 8 tackles, and defensive lineman Davion Deal at 5 tackles for Tulane against UCF, and they have a solid defense as well, but like SMU, it's a little inconsistent, and they need to improve on defense. A lot of teams in the American Conference do struggle with defense, but Tulane's defense is not one of the worst. It is very decent, and their offense is great. So who do I think is going to win this game? This game is at Tulane, and that helps Tulane, but they just lost at home to UCF. and that it was a tough loss, but I still think the home field advantage is really going to help Tulane, and they are having a great season. They still have a lot to play for. They still have a chance to maybe make a New Year's Day bowl game if a lot of things go their way, and they still have a chance to win the American Conference. So Tulane has still a lot to play for, and Tulane's having a great season. SMU, they have struggled a little bit this season, but they're really finding their way. Last few weeks they're playing a lot better. Rhett Lashlee really has SMU playing good football right now, and they're in the upward trajectory, and they still have a chance to win the American if a lot of things go their way. So SMU, I think, is going to really show up to play in this game. I think they're going to play really well at Tulane, but I think Tulane's going to beat SMU 35-31. I still think Tulane is just playing a little bit better. I think SMU's playing really good, and obviously they can have an offensive explosion, so it's going to be up to Tulane's defense to stop SMU. But I think with it being at home, they still have a lot of momentum, even though the loss to UCF does hurt them. This game could go either way. I think SMU could easily win this game. They're very talented as well. Both teams have a lot of talent for teams that are in the American Conference, not named Cincinnati and UCF. Both have a lot of sneaky good players. I think Tulane is going to show up to play, and I think Tulane is going to find a way to get enough stops to win, and I got Tulane beating SMU 35-31. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think SMU or Tulane is going to win this game and why, and I will see you next time.